They thought humans were mortals until we redefined the laws of physics in war part. One Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of his ship, the Defiant Spirit, and looked at the stars outside. His hands gripped the railing tightly. Today would change everything for humanity. Today. The aliens would learn what humans could do when pushed into a corner. The meeting room on the space station was cold and quiet. Ambassador Yuna sat across from Warlord Vraxis, the leader of the Kryn Empire. The Kryn looked like giant lizards with 4 arms and red eyes that glowed in the dim light. Vraxis was twice the size of any human, covered in black scales that looked like armor. "Your species is new to the galaxy," Vraxis said, his voice deep and rough. "You do not understand how things work here. The Kryn Empire needs your worlds. We need Earth and all your colonies. You will leave, or we will make you leave." Yuna kept her face calm, even though her heart was racing. "We came to space seeking friendship. We want peace with all species. Earth is our home. We cannot simply abandon it." Vraxis laughed, a horrible sound like grinding metal. "Friendship? Peace? These are words for the weak. We have seen your technology reports. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are basic. You barely understand the physics that govern this galaxy. You are children playing with toys." Behind Vraxis, other alien species watched. They were part of the Galactic Coalition, a group of hundreds of alien civilizations. Some looked at Yuna with pity. Others looked bored. None thought humanity stood a chance. "We have 1 solar cycle to evacuate?" Yuna asked, her voice steady. "1 cycle. After that, our fleet will take your worlds. If you resist, we will destroy your species completely." Vraxis stood up, his massive form blocking the light. "This meeting is over. Run, humans. Run while you still can." Back on the Defiant Spirit, Captain Jinwoo gathered his officers in the war room. Commander Taeyang, his tactical officer, pulled up images of the Kryn fleet on the main screen. 500 warships. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. "They think we're nothing," Taeyang said quietly. "They think we'll run, will we?" asked a young officer, her voice shaking. Jinwoo turned to face his crew. "No, we won't run. And we won't surrender." He pressed a button on the console. "Dr. Hana, please come to the war room." The door opened and Dr. Hana walked in. She was small and thin, with tired eyes and hair tied back in a messy knot. She carried a datapad clutched to her chest. She looked nervous, but there was something else in her eyes. Something fierce. "Show them," Jinwoo said. Hana took a deep breath and activated her datapad. The main screen changed, showing equations and diagrams that made no sense to most of the crew. "For 3 years," Hana began, "I've been working on something secret. The Galactic Coalition shared their physics with us when we joined. They told us the rules. Faster-than-light travel only works through wormhole gates. Energy shields have maximum limits. Weapons cannot exceed certain speeds or power levels. These are laws," they said. "Universal laws that cannot be broken." She pressed another button. The screen showed a strange device, all curves and glowing rings. "But here's what they didn't tell us. Those aren't laws. They're just limits that every other species accepted without question. They learned these rules thousands of years ago and never questioned them again. They got comfortable. They stopped experimenting." Engineer Minho stood up from his seat. "What Dr. Hana is saying is that we found something. Something the rest of the galaxy missed. Or ignored," Hana added. "The Alcubierre drive, every species knows about it theoretically. It bends space-time around a ship, letting it move without actually moving. But the galaxy dismissed it as too impractical, too energy-intensive for regular use." Taeyang frowned. "So we found a way to make it efficient?" "No," Hana said, as she smiled for the first time. It was not a kind smile. "We found a way to weaponize it." The room went silent. Jinwoo took over. "When you bend space-time for travel, you create a bubble. A tiny area where the laws of physics work differently. The galaxy uses this gently, slowly." We asked a different question. What happens if you create dozens of these bubbles at once, right around an enemy ship, and make them collapse instantly? The ship gets crushed, Minho said. From all directions at once. From all dimensions. It doesn't explode. It just stops existing. One of the younger officers looked sick. That's possible? The math says yes, Hannah replied. We built a test model. We tried it on an asteroid. The asteroid vanished. Not destroyed, vanished, gone from reality. Does the coalition know? Someone asked. No, Jinwoo said. They saw our official reports. We showed them outdated technology on purpose. We let them think we were weak. We let the Kryn think we would be easy prey. Yuna's voice came through the communication system. She had returned from the meeting. Captain Jinwoo, I'm back on board? The Kryn rejected all peace terms. They're assembling their fleet at the edge of our solar system. They'll attack in 3 days. Only 500 ships for now, Taiyang noted. They're so confident they didn't bring their full force. Jinwoo looked at his crew. He saw fear in some faces, but he also saw determination. Humanity had always been good at one thing, surviving. They survived ice ages and plagues. They survived wars and disasters. And they survived by being clever, by adapting, by doing what others thought impossible. The Kryn think we're mortals bound by their rules, Jinwoo said. They think physics limits us the same way it limits them. They're wrong. We're going to show them what happens when a species fights for survival. We're going to show them that desperation creates innovation. What are our orders? Tiang asked. Jinwoo activated the ship-wide communication. All crew, this is your captain. In 3 days, we face an enemy that wants to destroy our species. They have more ships. They have bigger weapons. They have thousands of years of experience. But they don't have what we have. They don't have our creativity, our stubbornness, our refusal to accept the impossible. He paused, looking out at the stars again. Earth was out there somewhere, blue and beautiful and fragile. We're going to meet them at Neptune. 3 ships against 500. And we're going to win. Not because we're stronger, but because we're willing to break every rule they think is sacred. Prepare the Alcubierre Cascade Drive. It's time to teach the galaxy a new kind of physics. The crew scrambled to their stations. Hannah returned to her lab to make final adjustments. Minho started charging the new weapon systems. Tiang plotted attack patterns that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. Outside, stars twinkled peacefully. But the peace was about to end. War was coming to humanity's doorstep. And humanity was ready to answer with weapons that shouldn't exist, with technology that broke every rule, with a fury that came from being backed into a corner with nowhere left to run. The Kryn thought they knew what humans were. They were about to learn how wrong they were. They thought humans were mortals until we redefined the laws of physics in War Part 2. The Kryn fleet emerged from the wormhole gate at the edge of the solar system like a swarm of angry insects. 500 warships, each one massive and covered in weapons. Admiral Thexkor commanded from his flagship, a vessel so large it had its own gravity. Thexkor looked at the display screen and laughed. 3 human ships waited near Neptune. Just 3. They were small compared to his fleet, like children's toys. He had expected humanity to gather everything they had for a desperate last stand. Instead, they sent 3 ships to face 500. Are they surrendering? Asked his second officer. No surrender signal, replied the communications ... They're just ... Thexkor felt annoyed. He had hoped for at least a small challenge. The Kryn live for battle. This would be too easy. Send a message to those ships. Tell them they have one last chance to run. After that, we will destroy them and continue to Earth. On the bridge of the Defiant Spirit, Captain Jinwoo received the message. He deleted it without reading. Status report, he ordered. Alcubierre Cascade Drive is fully charged, Engineer Minho reported from the engine room. All safety limits removed like you ordered. If this goes wrong, we could tear a hole in space-time. If this goes wrong, we're all dead anyway, Jinwoo replied. Dr. Hana, are the calculations correct? Hana's voice came through, calm now. She had spent 3 sleepless days checking and rechecking every equation. The math is solid. The test on the asteroid worked. But Captain, we've never tried this on moving targets. We've never tried multiple bubbles at once. And we've certainly never tried it on this scale. First time for everything, Jinwoo said. He looked at Commander Taeyang. Target selection? Taeyang pulled up the tactical display. The Kryn ships were moving in a standard formation, confident and organized. I've marked the ships in tight groups. If we can take out the clustered ones first, it will create chaos in their ranks. Good, target the first cluster. 20 ships, all close together. Jinwoo pressed the communication button to reach the other 2 human vessels. Phoenix, Horizon, this is Defiant Spirit. Prepare to fire on my mark. Remember, this is not about destroying them. This is about sending a message. Make it count. The Kryn fleet continued forward, weapons charging, shields at maximum. They were so confident that some crews were already celebrating their coming victory. Admiral Lexcor noticed something strange. The 3 human ships weren't moving. They just floated there, not running, not attacking. Their shields were down. Their weapons appeared offline. Are their systems failing? He wondered aloud. No, sir, said the sensor officer. They're building up energy. A lot of energy. I've never seen readings like this. What kind of weapon system? Lexcor demanded. I don't know, sir. It doesn't match any known, the sensor board exploded with warnings. Space itself began to twist around 20 Kryn ships in the front formation. The ships tried to change course, but it was already too late. Bubbles of compressed space-time formed around each vessel. Inside the bubbles, the laws of physics went insane. Space folded in on itself. Time moved at different speeds in different parts of each ship. The vessels didn't have time to scream or send distress signals. They simply collapsed. Metal crushed like paper. Energy shields meant nothing against the warping of space itself. 20 massive warships vanished in silence. No explosions. No debris. Just empty space where proud Kryn vessels had been seconds before. The Kryn fleet stopped advancing. Every crew member stared at their screens in shock and horror. Their sensors showed nothing where their comrades had been. Not destroyed ships? Not wreckage. Nothing. What did they do? Whispered Lexcor's second officer. Lexcor couldn't answer. In his 30 years of military service, in hundreds of battles, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had just erased 20 ships from existence. All ships evasive maneuvers, Lexcor shouted. Scatter formation. Don't stay in groups. But the human ships fired again. This time, 30 Kryn vessels found themselves trapped in space-time bubbles. The warping reality crushed them. They ceased to exist. Panic spread through the Kryn fleet. Ships broke formation, captains giving orders over each other, discipline falling apart. Some tried to run. Others tried to attack. Nothing worked. The 3 human ships moved now, not with traditional engines, but by sliding through space itself. They appeared in new locations without traveling through the space between. Impossible, according to all known physics. Another volley. 40 more ships vanished. Fall back. Lexcor screamed. All ships return to the wormhole gate. Retreat. The Kryn fleet turned and ran. But the human ships followed, firing again and again. Space twisted and folded. Ships disappeared in clusters. By the time the surviving Kryn vessels reached the safety of the wormhole gate, they had lost 200 ships. 200 ships destroyed by 3 human vessels. In less than an hour, across the galaxy, monitoring stations watched in stunned silence. The Galactic Coalition had placed observation posts throughout the solar system to witness humanity's expected destruction. Instead, they witnessed something that should have been impossible. In the Coalition's emergency meeting hall, representatives from 100 species gathered in chaos. The recordings played over and over on the main screen. Ships vanishing. Space folding. Physics breaking. How? demanded the Vextari ambassador, a species known for their scientific advancement. The Alcubierre principle is known to us. We dismissed it as impractical. How did humans weaponize it? They shouldn't have been able to, said the Quarren representative, her tentacles waving in agitation. The energy requirements alone should be impossible for a species as young as theirs. Ambassador Yuna stood before them all. She looked tired but proud. My species faced extinction. When you face the end of everything you love, you stop accepting limits. You question every assumption. You try what others call impossible. You violated the natural order, argued the Kryn sympathizer, a species allied with the Empire. There are physical laws for a reason. We didn't violate anything, Yuna replied calmly. We just stopped believing that what you call laws are actually limits. You all grew comfortable. You had thousands of years of peace and prosperity. You stopped pushing boundaries. We didn't have that luxury. We had decades to prepare for this moment, and we used every single day. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species demanded that humanity share the technology. Others wanted it banned. A few quietly approached Yuna after the meeting, asking about defensive pacts. Meanwhile, in Kryn space, Warlord Vraxis received Admiral Thexcor's report. The Admiral stood before him, shaking, waiting for punishment. 200 ships, Vraxis said slowly. 300 survived. 3 human ships against 500 of our best warships, and we lost. My lord, I have no explanation, Thexcor said. They used weapons we don't understand. They bent reality itself. Vraxis was silent for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice cold and hard. If they can break one physical law, they might break others. This makes them more dangerous than any species in the galaxy. We cannot allow them to exist. Mobilize the full battle fleet. Every ship. Every weapon. 5,000 warships. We will crush them with numbers so vast that their impossible weapons won't matter. Back on the Defiant Spirit, the crew celebrated their victory. But Captain Jinwoo didn't join them. He stood on the bridge watching the stars. Dr. Hana came to stand beside him. We won, she said. We won one battle, Jinwoo replied. But we've also shown them what we can do. They'll come back. And next time, they'll bring everything they have. Will the Cascade Drive work against thousands of ships? I don't know. We used almost all our energy for this fight. It takes hours to recharge. Jinwoo turned to face her. We need more. More weapons. More impossible technology. What else do you have? Hannah smiled, that fierce smile again. I have ideas. Terrible, wonderful ideas that the galaxy will say can't work. Let's prove them wrong again. Outside, Neptune's blue surface reflected starlight. Debris from the Kryn ships had left no trace. They had been removed from reality itself, erased by weapons that broke the rules of physics. And somewhere in the darkness of space, 5,000 more ships were being prepared. The war was just beginning, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what desperate innovation could achieve. They thought humans were mortals until we redefined the laws of physics in War Part 3. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Neptune. The Kryn Empire had learned from their defeat. Their new strategy was simple: spread out and attack everywhere at once, on the colony world of New Bizan. Commander Minji watched her defense screens with growing fear. 12 Kryn battleships approached her colony from different directions. Her garrison had only 3 defense platforms and 2 patrol ships. It wasn't enough. All civilians to the underground shelters, she ordered. Defense teams to positions. Send a distress signal to Earth. Her communications officer looked up, his face pale. Commander, Earth is under attack too. So are 7 other colonies. The Kryn are hitting us everywhere at the same time? Minji felt her stomach drop. This was it. The Kryn had learned not to cluster their ships. They stayed spread out, moving in patterns that made them harder to target. The space-time weapons that had worked so well at Neptune would be less effective now. How long until they're in weapons range? She asked. 15 minutes, Commander. Minji looked at her small force. 15 minutes. Then the bombardment would begin. The shields would fall. The colony would burn. She had 3,000 people down there in the shelters, trusting her to protect them. All ships, all platforms, prepare to engage, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We make them pay for every inch. But then something changed on the sensors. New contacts appeared. Not ships, exactly. The readings were strange, flickering in and out of detection. What is that? Asked the sensor officer. I don't know. They're coming from ... everywhere and nowhere. The readings don't make sense. Lieutenant Sora sat in a chair that didn't look like a chair. It was more like a pod, filled with strange equipment that glowed with blue light. Dozens of cables connected to points on her head and body. Her eyes were closed, but she was awake. Very awake. Dr. Doyon checked the monitors around her pod. Quantum entanglement stable. Consciousness spread achieved. How do you feel, Lieutenant? Sora's voice came from speakers around the room, but her lips didn't move. I feel ... I'm in 372 places at once. I can see the Kryn ships from every angle. I can feel the drone fighters like they're my own hands and feet. Dizzy? Confused? No, it feels natural. Like I was always meant to be this way. Sora's consciousness spread across hundreds of small fighter drones, each one linked to her through quantum entanglement. She wasn't controlling them remotely. She was them. All of them simultaneously. Other pilots ready? She asked. 8 pilots total, Doyon confirmed. 3,000 fighter drones between you. You're cleared to engage. Sora smiled, though her body and the pod remained still. Time to haunt some Kryn. The Kryn ships approaching New Bizon detected the incoming fighters and prepared to swat them aside like insects. But something was wrong. The human fighters moved in perfect coordination. Not like a squadron following orders. Like a single organism with hundreds of bodies, they dodged every shot before it was fired. They predicted every movement. When the Kryn adjusted their firing solutions, the fighters had already moved to new positions. How are they doing that? Screamed the Kryn captain of the lead ship. They're reacting faster than possible. His tactical officer stared at the screen in horror. They're not reacting. They already know where we're going to shoot. It's like they can see the future. But it wasn't the future Sora saw. It was probability. Her consciousness existed in quantum superposition, aware of multiple possible outcomes at once. She knew where the Kryn would fire because she could see all possible firing solutions simultaneously. She chose the paths where her drones survived. The human fighters swarmed the Kryn ships like angry bees. They were too small and too fast for the large ship weapons to track. They slipped through shields and fired at weak points with impossible precision. One Kryn ship exploded. Then another. Fall back, ordered the Kryn fleet commander. These aren't normal pilots. There's something else. Something wrong. But falling back didn't help. The human fighters followed, anticipating every evasive maneuver. More Kryn ships died. Finally, the survivors ran. Using emergency jumps to escape the system, Commander Minji watched in amazement as the mysterious fighters destroyed or drove off the entire Kryn attack force. Then a message came through on her screen. New Bizon Colony, this is Lieutenant Sora of the Quantum Fighter Corps. The immediate threat is neutralized. We're moving to assist other colonies. Stay safe. Thank you, Minji whispered. But what are you? The fighters didn't answer. They simply vanished from sensors, appearing light years away. Almost instantly to help another colony under attack. In the Galactic Coalition Science Center, a demonstration was underway. Dr. Doyon stood before a room full of alien scientists who refused to believe what they were seeing. Consciousness, Doyon explained, is not a classical phenomenon. It operates on quantum principles. Your species know this, but you never explored the implications. She showed them equations on the screen. Half the scientists looked confused. The other half looked terrified. When we studied human consciousness, we discovered it naturally exists in a state of quantum superposition. Every thought, every decision, every moment of awareness involves quantum effects in our neurons. We simply found a way to enhance and extend this natural ability. That's not possible, said a Vextari scientist. Consciousness cannot exist in multiple locations. It violates the principle of identity. You cannot be in two places at once and remain you. Watch, Doyon said. She activated a viewing screen showing Lieutenant Sora in her pod. On another screen, hundreds of drone fighters moved in perfect coordination across a battlefield. Lieutenant Sora is in her pod, safe aboard a carrier ship, but she is also in every one of those drones. Not controlling them, being them. Her consciousness is quantum entangled with the drone systems. She experiences all of them simultaneously. If one drone is destroyed? Asked a Quarren scientist. She loses that piece of her awareness, but the rest remains. It's no different than losing any other body part. Painful, but not fatal. Her core consciousness is always protected in the pod, which exists in quantum superposition itself. The alien scientists exchanged worried looks. One of them stood up. This is dangerous. If consciousness can be split and spread, what stops someone from spreading themselves across an entire fleet? Across a planet? You could create a hive mind. We could, Doyon agreed. We don't. Each pilot maintains their individuality. They volunteer for this. And there are limits. The human mind can handle maybe 500 separate drone connections before the strain becomes too much. Still, the scientist argued, you've turned warfare into something unfair. How can any species fight an enemy that can predict every move, that exists everywhere at once? Doyon's expression became serious. How was it fair when the Kryn threatened to destroy our entire species? We didn't start this war. We simply refused to lose it. Across 12 colony worlds, similar scenes played out. Kryn attack forces arrived expecting easy victories. Instead, they found ghost fighters that couldn't be hit, couldn't be predicted, couldn't be stopped. Pilots who weren't really there but were everywhere at once. The Kryn lost 300 more ships in a single day. Their morale broke. Entire squadrons refused orders to attack human colonies. Who could fight an enemy that knew what you would do before you did it? Warlord Vraxus received the reports and threw his command tablet across the room. First, they bend space. Now they bend reality itself. What's next? Can they travel through time? Can they read our thoughts? His advisor remained silent, afraid to speak. Gather the allied species, Vraxus ordered. The Thorg, the Kelix, the Brox, all of them. If humanity can break the laws of physics, we must unite the entire galaxy against them. 5,000 ships aren't enough. We need 20,000. 50,000. However many it takes. My lord, the advisor said carefully, some of our allies are wavering. They fear humanity's weapons. They worry that fighting humans will only make things worse. Then they're cowards, Vraxus snarled. Don't they see? If humanity can do these things after just a few decades in space, imagine what they'll do in a century. In a millennium. They must be stopped now, while they're still small, while we still have a chance. On Earth, in a secret military facility, Lieutenant Sora emerged from her pod. She stumbled, and other pilots caught her. Being spread across so many locations was exhausting, even for someone trained for it. How many colonies did we save? She asked. All 12, replied another pilot. The Kryn retreated from every site. We didn't lose a single colony. Sora smiled, but it was a tired smile. Good, but they'll adapt. They always do. We need something new. Something even they can't predict. In a nearby lab, Dr. Hana was already working on that something new. She had a meeting with Admiral Hyan in an hour. She would show him Project Dark Matter. And if he approved it, the war would escalate to a level the galaxy had never imagined. Outside, stars shined peacefully. But there was no peace. The Kryn were gathering their allies. Humanity was creating new weapons. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space itself, consciousness danced between states of being, proving that reality was far stranger than anyone had dared to believe. They thought humans were mortals until we redefined the laws of physics in war part, Fore Admiral Hyan looked at the star map with growing concern. Red markers covered it like a disease. Each marker represented a Kryn ship. There were thousands of them. 25,000 warships from 6 different species, all united against humanity. We can't be everywhere, he said quietly. Even with the quantum fighters, even with the space-time weapons, we're spread too thin. Captain Jinwoo stood beside him in the war room. The cascade drive takes too long to recharge. The quantum pilots are exhausted. We need something that can hit harder and reach farther. I might have something, said Professor Yunha, entering the room. She looked nervous, clutching her datapad like a shield. But it's dangerous, really dangerous. Everything we've done is dangerous, Hyan replied. Show me. Yunha activated the main screen. It showed equations and diagrams that hurt to look at. Dark matter. It makes up 85% of the universe, but it doesn't interact with normal matter. We can't see it or touch it. It only affects things through gravity. I know what dark matter is, Hyan said impatiently. What about it? What if we could make it interact with normal matter? Just for a moment in a small area? Yuna's hands shook as she spoke. We've been working on field generators that can bridge the gap between dark matter and normal matter. If we deploy them around an enemy fleet and activate them, what happens? Jinwoo asked. The enemy ships suddenly experience gravitational forces from all the dark matter they could never feel before. Imagine the gravity of an entire galaxy compressed into the space of a solar system. Ships wouldn't just be destroyed. They'd be pulled apart by forces they can't even detect. Hyan was quiet for a long moment. What are the risks? We don't know the long-term effects, Yunha admitted. We might damage space-time itself. We might create regions of space that become permanently unstable. We're tampering with fundamental forces we barely understand. Does it work? In simulations, yes. We haven't field-tested it. There hasn't been time? Council member Jiwon entered the room. She had been listening from the doorway. You're talking about using a weapon you haven't tested? A weapon that might cause permanent damage to the universe itself? We're talking about survival, Hyan said firmly. At what cost? Jiwon demanded. We've already bent space-time. We've split human consciousness across hundreds of bodies. Now we want to play with dark matter? When does it stop? When do we become the monsters the galaxy fears? When we start. Using these weapons for conquest instead of defense, Jinwoo replied. The Kryn want to destroy us. We didn't ask for this war. I know that, Jiwon said, her voice softer now, but I'm scared. Not of the Kryn, of us, of what we're becoming. Each weapon is more extreme than the last. What happens when the war ends? Will we even remember how to be peaceful? Hyan looked at all of them. I wish we had better choices. I wish we could talk our way out of this, but we can't. 25,000 ships are coming. If we don't stop them, humanity ends. Everything we are, everything we could be, gone forever. Is that acceptable to you? Gyuan looked away. No, but losing our souls isn't acceptable either. Then we'll have to find a way to keep both, Hyan said. Yunha, you have authorization for field testing. Make it work. Jinwoo, prepare your fleet. We're going to show the Kryn that numbers don't matter when reality itself is your weapon. The test happened 3 days later, far from any inhabited systems. They chose a dead star system, full of asteroids and nothing else. Yuna's team deployed the field generators in a wide grid. Activation in 10 seconds, Yunha reported from the test ship. 987. Dr. Hannah watched from a safe distance on another vessel. She felt sick. They were crossing another line. Another boundary. How many lines could they cross before they couldn't find their way back? 3, 2, 1, activating. Space changed. It didn't look different, but instruments screamed warnings. Gravity readings went insane. In the test zone, asteroids began moving, pulled by forces they had never felt before. They accelerated to impossible speeds. They collided with each other, creating explosions of rock and ice. Then the asteroids started breaking apart. Not from collisions, from the gravity itself. The dark matter all around them suddenly became real, became tangible, and its gravity was crushing. Turn it off. Someone screamed. Yunha shut down the field generators. The effect stopped immediately. Where there had been asteroids, there was only dust and fragments spinning in all directions. It works, Yuna said, her voice barely a whisper. Stars help us, it actually works. The Kryn Coalition fleet assembled at the edge of Kryn space. 25,000 ships from 6 species? It was the largest military force in galactic history. Warlord Vraxis stood on the bridge of his super dreadnought, looking at the fleet with satisfaction. Today, he announced on the open channel, we end the human threat. We will not cluster our ships. We will not give them easy targets. We advance in a wave so wide they cannot possibly defend against it all. And when we reach Earth, we will make an example of them. The galaxy will remember what happens to species that break the natural order. The fleet moved forward. It would take days to reach human space, but Vraxis was patient. This time, there would be no mistakes. Captain Jinwoo commanded a task force of 12 human ships. They watched the approaching horde on their sensors. It looked like a wall of death stretching across space. Orders, Captain, Commander Taiyang asked. We deploy the dark matter network, Jinwoo said, at the edge of the Kryn home system. Not in it, not yet. We give them a warning first. A warning? Taiyang looked confused. We're not monsters, Jinwoo replied. Not yet. They need to see what we can do. They need to understand that continuing this war will destroy them. The human ships moved silently through space, avoiding the main Kryn fleet. They reached the outer edge of the Kryn home system and began deploying field generators. Dozens of them, spread across light hours of space. When the network was ready, Jinwoo sent a message to Warlord Vraxis. This is Captain Jinwoo of Earth. We have deployed weapons in your home system. Weapons that will make your space uninhabitable if we activate them. You can verify this with your sensors. We don't want to use them, but we will if your fleet doesn't turn back. You have 24 hours to decide, choose peace or choose destruction. Vraxis received the message and laughed. Bluffing, humans are bluffing. They can't reach our home system. Our defenses would detect them, but his science officer looked pale. My lord, sensors are detecting unusual field generators at the system's edge. Hundreds of them. The energy signatures match human technology. What do they do? I don't know. The readings are unlike anything in our database. Vraxis felt doubt for the first time. What if it wasn't a bluff? But he couldn't show weakness. Not now, not with 5 allied species watching him. Send the message to all ships, he ordered. The fleet continues. We do not negotiate with species that should not exist. 24 hours passed. The Kryn fleet did not turn back. Jinwoo received his orders from Admiral Hyun. Activate the network, not full power. Just enough to prove we're serious. With a heavy heart, Jinwoo gave the command. Activate dark matter field. 10% power, 30-second duration. At the edge of Kryn space, the field generators came online. Dark matter began interacting with normal matter. Mining stations at the system's edge reported gravity anomalies. Ships experienced unexplained acceleration. Navigation systems failed as space itself seemed to develop invisible massive objects. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. 30 seconds. No permanent damage. But the message was clear. Vraxis watched the reports in horror. His mining stations were damaged. 3 patrol ships had been destroyed, crushed by gravitational forces they never saw coming. And the humans had used only a fraction of their weapons power. If they activated that at full power throughout our system, his science officer said, voice shaking, our homeworld would be torn apart. Everyone would die. For the first time in his life, Warlord Vraxis felt true fear, not for himself or his people. These humans weren't just breaking physics. They were holding his entire species hostage. My lord, his advisor said carefully. Perhaps we should consider negotiations. Vraxis looked at the fleet around him, 25,000 ships. The pride of 6 species, and it didn't matter. Numbers meant nothing against an enemy who could manipulate the universe itself. On Earth, Jiwan met with Dr. Hannah in a quiet garden. We won, Jiwan said. The Kryn are withdrawing. Word is spreading through their fleet. Half their allies have already abandoned coalition? We didn't win, Hannah replied, looking at the sky. We just scared them into stopping. That's not the same thing. Are you okay? Juwan asked gently. No, I created weapons that break reality. I helped build things that could damage the universe permanently. I did it to save humanity, but I wonder, did we save ourselves or did we just become something else? Juwan sat beside her. I've been angry at you, at all of you, but I understand now. You did what had to be done, we all did. Now we have to make sure we remember why we did it. So we never use these weapons for anything but defense. So we never become conquerors. Can we promise that? Hannah asked. Once you have power, it's hard not to use it. They thought humans were mortals, until we redefined the laws of physics in War Part 5 1 year after the war began. Ambassador Yuna walked into the peace conference with her head held high. The neutral station was massive, built by the Galactic Coalition specifically for this meeting. Representatives from dozens of species watched her enter, some with respect, some with fear. All with curiosity. Across the table sat Consul Vector, the new leader of the Kryn government. He was younger than Vraxis, with fewer scars and calmer eyes. The old warlord was in prison now, awaiting trial by his own people for leading them to disaster. Ambassador Yuna, Vector said, his voice formal but not hostile. Thank you for agreeing to meet. My people have suffered greatly in this war, but I must acknowledge that we started it. We underestimated you. We paid the price. We all paid, Yuna replied. War is expensive for everyone. The negotiations took 3 days. The terms were simple. The Kryn Empire would recognize human sovereignty over all Earth colonies. Both species would establish neutral zones between their territories. No military ships would cross these zones without permission. Trade agreements would be negotiated later, when wounds had healed, on the final day. Vector asked the question that everyone wanted answered. How? How did a species so young, so small, create weapons that our civilization never imagined in 10,000 years of spaceflight? Yuna chose her words carefully. You became comfortable. You learned the rules of physics and stopped questioning them. You had peace for so long that you forgot how to think dangerously. We didn't have that luxury. We had decades to prepare for our extinction. Desperation makes you creative. Will you share these technologies? Asked the Vextari representative. For the good of all species? We'll share our methods, Yuna said. How we think. How we question. But not the weapons themselves. Those exist only for our defense. If every species learns to break the boundaries of what they think is possible, you won't need our weapons. You'll create your own innovations. The Galactic Scientific Council gathered in their grand hall. Dr. Hana stood before them, feeling small among so many brilliant alien minds. But she had information they desperately wanted. I've prepared a presentation, she began, projecting her research onto the main display. First, I want to address the most common question. Did we break the laws of physics? The answer is no. We broke the limits you placed on physics. She showed them the equations for the Alcubierre cascade drive. You all knew this principle. You knew spacetime could be bent, but you decided it was too impractical for regular use. You never asked the next question, what else could we do with it? Could we weaponize it? Could we create multiple bubbles at once? You stopped exploring because you accepted conventional wisdom. A Quarren scientist raised a tentacle, but the energy requirements are enormous. How did you solve that? We didn't solve it efficiently, Hannah admitted. Our cascade drive drains our ships completely. We can only use it a few times before we need hours to recharge. It's not practical, but it works. Sometimes impractical solutions are better than no solutions. She moved to the next slide, showing the quantum consciousness technology. This one is controversial, I know. You say consciousness cannot exist in multiple locations. We asked, why not? Your species have studied quantum mechanics for millennia. You know about superposition and entanglement. We simply applied these principles to the human mind. At what cost? Asked a concerned scientist. Your pilots experience reality in ways that must be psychologically damaging. They do, Hannah agreed. Every quantum pilot undergoes extensive psychological support. Some can't handle it and must stop, but they volunteer. They understand the risks. And they're helping us develop better techniques to protect their mental health. The dark matter presentation created the most debate. Scientists argued for hours about the risks. Hannah let them argue, then spoke quietly. You're right to be concerned. We don't fully understand the long-term effects. We might have damaged space-time in ways we can't detect yet. But here's what we learned. Every major breakthrough carries risks. You can only discover the unknown by stepping into it. We chose to take that risk rather than accept extinction. What if your weapons cause permanent damage to the universe? Demanded an elderly scientist. What if they don't? Hannah replied. What if the universe is more resilient than you think? What if your caution has prevented discoveries that could benefit everyone? I'm not saying we were right to be reckless. I'm saying you were wrong to be too careful. She paused, looking at all of them. The galaxy has been stagnant for thousands of years. You made amazing discoveries long ago, then stopped. You found comfortable limits and never pushed past them. You called it wisdom. I call it fear. Easy to say when you're not the one who faces the consequences, an angry voice called out. We face consequences every day, Hannah said firmly. Every human pilot knows they might lose their mind to quantum superposition. Every ship captain knows their space-time weapons might tear open reality. Every scientist worries that our dark matter technology might destabilize the universe. We live with that fear. But we don't let it stop us. The hall was silent. Then, slowly, some scientists began nodding. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of the Defiant Spirit, now promoted to admiral. He commanded a new joint task force with ships from Earth and 5 coalition species. Their mission was to explore and document the technologies humanity had developed. Commander Tiang worked beside him as always. Strange, isn't it? Tiang said. A year ago, they wanted to destroy us. Now they want to learn from us. Fear turns to respect if you survive long enough, Jinwoo replied. Engineer Minho's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, we've completed the installation of the experimental drive on the research vessel. This one is different from anything we've built before. Different how? Jinwoo asked. It's based on principles even stranger than what we've used. Dr. Hannah calls it Project Singularity. She won't tell me the details, but she's been working with Lieutenant Sora and the quantum pilots on something new. Something that makes our previous weapons look simple. Jinwoo smiled. Humanity hadn't stopped innovating. They never would. 50 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. Inspired by humanity's example, other species began questioning their own assumptions. The Vextari developed a method of communicating through subspace that made messages instant across any distance. The Quarren found a way to manipulate probability itself, making unlikely events happen reliably. The Calyx, former allies of the Kryn, created devices that could heal injuries by reversing time locally around wounds. 7 major breakthroughs in 50 years. More progress than the previous 1,000 years combined. Ambassador Yuna, now old and gray, attended the opening of the Galactic Innovation Center on Earth. Species from across the galaxy sent their brightest minds to study here. Not to steal human secrets, but to learn how humans thought. How they questioned. How they dared. Captain Jinwoo, now truly old and retired, stood beside her. We changed them, he said. Not with weapons. With ideas. We showed them that stagnation is more dangerous than innovation, Yuna agreed. Fear of mistakes kept them safe but stopped them from growing. They needed someone to prove that taking risks could lead to something better. In a museum dedicated to the war, visitors walked through exhibits showing the weapons humanity had built. The space-time generators, the quantum pods, the dark matter field projectors. Children stared at them with wide eyes while their parents explained the history. One exhibit displayed a message from Warlord Vraxus, written from his prison cell before he died. It read, I thought humans were mortals, bound by the same physical laws that limited every species. I was wrong. They are mortals. But mortality does not mean weakness. It means urgency. It means refusing to accept limits when survival is at stake. They did not conquer us with superior numbers or strength. They conquered us with superior imagination. My mistake was thinking physics was a prison. For humans, it was a puzzle to solve. May history remember my failure so others never repeat it. Dr. Hana, very old now but still sharp, gave a final lecture to a class of mixed-species students. Some people say we got lucky, she told them. They say we stumbled onto these discoveries by accident. That's not true. We succeeded because we had no choice but to succeed. We had a deadline. We had enemies at our gates. We had everything to lose? A young Kryn student raised their hand. Professor, do you think desperation is necessary for innovation? No, Hana said thoughtfully. But curiosity is, and courage, and willingness to fail. Desperation just forced us to have all three at once. You don't need to face extinction to innovate. You just need to stop accepting impossible as an answer. Late at night, in her laboratory, Dr. Hana looked at her latest project. She was working on something new, of course. She would never stop. The project involved consciousness and time, seeing if thoughts could move backward as easily as forward. It might not work. Probably wouldn't work, but that had never stopped her before. Jiwan found her there, still working at midnight. You should rest, Jiwan said gently. I'll rest when I'm dead, Hana replied, but she smiled. Just one more test. I think I'm close to something. You always are.